Welcome, everyone. I'm Naama Segal-Karas. This is How Do You Jew, the podcast that highlights the diversity of the Jewish experience. I have with me today an amazing halakhic expert and helper to Am Yisrael. He loves his fellow as he loves himself. I have Rav Yoni Rosensweig, and he runs Ma'aglei Nefesh, an organization in Israel that works to combine halakha with mental health for the benefit of all. We've just been chit-chatting here about his origin story and how he really loves answering questions and helping people bridge the gap between halakha and mental health. And would you be willing to just touch briefly on the thing that you both hate about Judaism, and how you feel maybe that's something other people resonate with too?
Absolutely, Nama, and thank you very much for having me on the podcast. I'm really happy to be here, and we've had a great conversation until now. But yeah, I was just telling you a little bit about the halakhic system. And to me, the halakhic system is both beautiful, but also the main point, I would say, of struggle for a lot of individuals, which I also wrestle with sometimes. Because it's really a tension between the quantitative and the qualitative. That's how I would put it. Mm-hmm. So halakha is very quantitative, right? And we can appreciate that. I think we can appreciate any system of law, that is secular even, right? Mm-hmm. Where we like the clarity. Right. And halakha gives clarity, right. Meaning when a person gets up in the morning, they want to know what to pray. So it's very clear, right? It's all in the siddur. You just open up the book, you say these words, and you're good to go, right? So a person does not have to be a great philosopher or a great theologian, or any of those things in order to connect with God. He simply has to say these words, do these actions, et cetera, et cetera. For lack of a better analogy, and maybe your listeners won't appreciate this so much, but it's a little bit like building a bookcase from IKEA. Like you get the materials.
I was going to say it's very prescriptive and just very straightforward. But also maybe it doesn't actually connect the soul to God as much as it follows the prescription.
Right. And that's the challenge, right? That's exactly where the challenge is, right?
Right.
On the one hand, having a prescription, I think is people are very gratified for that. They don't want to try to figure out how to build the bookcase on their own.
Correct. I could not do it alone.
Correct. They want the instructions, and they want to get all the pieces, et cetera, et cetera. That's nice to have, On the other hand, every bookcase looks the same, right? And people sometimes get fed up with the IKEA products because my whole house is going to look like it was bought in some store, et cetera. I want something unique, I want something special in my house, this piece I found in some secondhand place, it's beautiful. That's the challenge here, right? On the one hand, you want to have something unique, and you want to connect with God through some sort of qualitative means, but we don't want that every single day. Meaning to have to connect to ourselves and our souls and come up with something new every single day is complicated. It's difficult, So halakha, I think, is a beautiful thing. It gives us structure, it gives us meaning, and it makes it accessible to every single person to do. But on the other hand, it also, to some extent, takes away from the meaning and the beauty that each individual brings to the table, and that's where the struggle and the wrestling goes.
I love that, and I personally have struggled with that all 9 years of being Bal Tshuva, so I definitely understand that, and also the specifics around Shabbat. I've spoken to a lot of non-observant Jews who identify as culturally Jewish, and the first words out of their mouth are, "I can't do all the rules. I'm a bad Jew," et cetera, et cetera. A lot of self-deprecation. And my immediate response is what the Rabbi used to say, just pick one mitzvah. That's enough. We're designed to be flawed. But even for me, as an adult, I still am comparing myself and saying, oh, well, I didn't do this good enough. I didn't do that good enough. What if God's mad at me? And it's really lovely that you're sort of reinforcing that's a reality for a lot of people. I love that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
much. I agree with you 100%.
Thank you. Now, in general, if there was one thing that you love, over the top about Judaism in general, whether it's a specific holiday or a midah or a belief or some sort of chokhmah, what is one thing you would, if the world would listen to you for 10 minutes willingly, what is one thing you would deliver so that people know about Judaism?
That's a great question. I would say that it's probably the ability to, I would say, how to put it, to introspect and to self-criticize. So I'll explain what I mean by that. We have a very special book. It's called the Gemara, the Talmud.
Yes.
And the reason I say it's very special is not because of the content, which I think is special, but because of the form. It's really a weird book.
It's like a giant Reddit thread. It's an ancient giant Reddit thread. That's
right. I mean, can you think of any other book which has like 500 years of discussions all piled in to like the same, and it's like you're always like jumping, like between generations, like you don't even know, like you read one person, suddenly you're reading someone who's 300 years later commenting on that,
it's
and
so
suddenly you're
crazy.
going back to something it's like a weird book, and yet somehow it works.
Yes, it does.
Like no one would write a book like that today. Certainly not like that.
No,
right? But what's beautiful about it is like this conversation that's constantly happening, and constantly there's like this constant back and forth and critique, of what has happened. So there's of course a respect for previous generations on the one hand, but we're not letting anybody off the hook. So right. We introspect, we think, we consider, we debate, we criticize. That I think is a beautiful thing, and I think that today, because of social media, also because of other, in some places, it seems like we've lost the ability to do that. Everything is so one-sided. Like people take very specific sides. It's hard for them to listen to the other side sometimes, but I think that sort of culture that the Gemara puts forth, where like Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai can disagree, and they do disagree almost about everything.
Right.
And yet they don't demonize each other.
Absolutely.
It's not like that guy is not a Jew, that guy is not, etc. He's like, I'm not going to daven with him, etc., etc. No, it's like, okay, we disagree about pretty much everything, but so what? I'm saying, like,
yes.
you're in the base Midrash, I'm in the base Midrash. We're all on the same team. I think that ability to do that, to disagree where you need to disagree, but still understand that we're all on the same team.
Right.
I think that's a nice thing.
I just adore that. I completely agree with you. Also, when I first started learning Daf Yomi, which I'm terrible at, I was, really trying to wrap my head around. Why are these guys in authority when they're jumping from like 500 to 1,000 back to 300? Right. Like, how is this an authority? It sounds like a really odd drunk conversation. And like, I meet these rabbis and they're like, no, it's magic. You don't understand. And I'm like, clearly I don't understand. And I also don't speak Aramaic. So explain it to me. And, and so it, I've always been fascinated by trying to wrap my head around both the structure of the book itself and how strange it is that we learn so many perspectives and so many opinions from such a vast time frame, but also the fact that there's so much contradiction in one paragraph. So many different people can have so many different opinions about one question. And, growing up, I had no religion at all. My parents were very, very chiloni. And my mother's family was chalutzim. My father was motzei shoah. We had no God at home at all. And I came back 9 years ago. And I remember when I first came back, like all I knew really was Chabad. And it was like, no, there's one answer. And there's just one answer. And this is the answer. Turns out in the Gemara, there's 1,000 answers. And it all depends on the year and how much wine they had at Purim. And it's just the craziest thought to me. But I love this point that it reinforces questioning, it reinforces investigation, it reinforces the diversity of perspective. That like Am Yisrael is a diamond, and that we have this capacity to vehemently disagree and love and respect the person too. I don't know that a lot of people have that capacity right now. I think that it's being crushed out of us with social media, but it's beautiful. Actually, it's funny because I actually have this is one of my standard that I have on my desk at all time. The How the Talmud Can Change Your Life. I thought maybe this would dumb it down more for me because I'm not good at it yet. But I love that that's the one thing you would deliver to the world. That's so awesome. That's so great. So, so in terms of, just touching a little bit on current events and the things that have happened over the last couple of years, I know that the conversation around mental health has always been important, but I mean, in particular, over the last 2.5 years, there's been a huge shift in the priorities, I think, that you have probably noticed, and a shift in the experiences that, human beings are going through. To segue to the last question, I was just curious, do you find that with everything that's happened in Eretz Yisrael and the impact that the war has had on everyone in various ways, do you find that you've been called up, metaphorically, to sort of step forward into your Judaism in a different way than you used to? Do you find that you're called to take on a slightly different role, a more robust role? How do you feel like you're bringing your Judaism right now?
Yeah, I think that, look, even before the war, before the war there was Corona, so then people also talk about mental health.
Absolutely.
But even before Corona, even before that, mental health was always something that obviously people needed addressed. And even before Corona, when I started dealing with it, I saw, how important it was to individuals. But yes, you're absolutely right. How much more so after Corona and after the war, where we've suffered significant mental health ramifications throughout the nation and throughout the world, really. The awareness of good mental health is much greater. Right. And my role in all of that, yes, becomes all the more significant. And yes, I mean, you could say that I have found somewhat of a calling in that. I think that's true. It definitely feels that way, that this is something which people need and people do ask me about, for sure. And there's a lot of work to do here, because we have to understand something. People are people, that's true, but people are people within their contexts. Right. So what I mean is, a person who's a Christian is a Christian, and he lives as a person within a Christian context. Right. And someone who's a Muslim is a person who lives as a person within a Muslim context. And the same thing with someone who is secular, and the same thing with someone who is religious and Orthodox, within the Jewish community. Right. In other words, what I'm trying to say is, a person like that may go through life, but they will go through it and see it through a religious prism. Right. So what I mean, for example, right, I had someone who's dealing with post-trauma who unfortunately tried to take their own lives. They had a suicidal attempt, and they ended up, in the hospital. And they called me after the suicide attempt. And what was their question? They asked me whether they need to bench Gomel. Meaning, they asked me whether they should say Hagomel, which is a bracha that you say after you're saved from danger. Right. They wanted to know, whether they should, because here they're the ones who caused the danger to themselves. Yeah. They did that to themselves, but they wanted to. So you might say, what? After someone did that, after someone went through such an event, this is what's on their mind? Right. And the answer is yes. Because for an Orthodox person, that's their context. Absolutely. For an Orthodox person, that's how they live and where they live. So therefore, no matter what life throws your way, you will usually see it through your own context and through the thing so therefore, you need someone who understands that context and is able to guide you through it. And that's the importance of the work, that I'm doing within mental health, is to basically be able to talk to people within that Orthodox Jewish law context and guide them in a way that is both, mentally healthy and still religiously and spiritually uplifting.
Is that something that you always thought you would end up doing?
I never knew that it would come to this. No, I can't say, oh, I had a dream to do that. I kind of fell into this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was definitely it's the kind of thing that I always thought I would do. Let's put it that way.
I love that. Yeah, same. I did not grow up dreaming of being a life coach. Hashem had other plans for me. But I totally get that. And I guess I ask about if this was what you wanted to be when you grew up, only because of the next question, which is in terms of the way that we see ourselves, obviously through a Jewish lens, through whatever lens it is that we were, nurture versus nature. Each of us, I hope, please God, each of us brings something incredibly unique as a Jew to the world. And I firmly believe that that's what I tell my clients, like the atoms that make up your body will never, ever be assembled in the same way again. You can be replaced. You can never be duplicated. And you have a unique purpose. God put you here for a reason, and that we are supposed to bring our own spin on Judaism to the world. I'm curious, obviously you fell into this, but you're doing such an incredible job of it. The big question of the podcast is, Rav Yoni, how do you Jew? How do you Jew in the world in a way that is, uniquely Rav Yoni?
In terms of, like I said, in terms of the topic, right, that I'm dealing with, that's the mental health, and obviously that's unique in and of itself. However, to me, on a more personal level, I would say, to your question, I think it's about being honest with you and with everybody around you. At the end of the day, right? People think sometimes that what this is about, the work that I do, it's about catering to people's needs or being lenient, like if a person has depression or anxiety, etc., and just finding a solution for them. And yeah, that's part of it, but it's not about being lenient, and it's not about twisting the halakha or changing it, in a way to fit a person's need. No, it's about honesty. It's about finding balance for the person, right? What does a person want? When a person ask your any of your listeners can ask themselves, yeah, what do I want? I want an answer that is authentic, that is loyal to the principles and ideas that I believe in. I don't want someone to be extra lenient for me. I want someone to tell me the truth. But I also want to know. But I also want to know that truth has within it a certain compassion. Right? And that's what people really want out of their Judaism. They don't want a compassionate Judaism that is a lie.
Yes.
They want a truthful Judaism that is compassionate, and that truth is what I always strive to bring in everything that I write online and in everything that I tell people. Meaning, I don't want to just write what people want to hear. Anybody can do that. Yeah. I'm going to write also what people don't want to hear. But I will write what I think is the truth, and I will always endeavor to show how that truth also fits well with people's lives and has real compassion for the circumstances that they always find themselves in.
Please forgive me. I am not a rabbi. I don't play one on TikTok, but that kind of sounds like the way Moshe Rabbeinu approached every individual Jew.
I'm the last person to compare myself to Moshe Rabbeinu, but I appreciate that.
Just saying, just in general, it was sort of his philosophy, like, I'm just going to deal with you as you are. Let's try to find the chesed way to do things. And Aaron as well. But I love that. And no offense to anyone, all of my listeners, all two of you who are listening, I would love to see more of this. Like, if we could say be more Zusha, also be more chesed, like recognizing that everyone is struggling with something, and everyone needs a little bit of compassion and just maybe a little less judgy and a little bit more compassion-y. Maybe that is the last thing we need before we can get Mashiach. And I love that you embody that. So thank you so much for that answer. Beyond that,
100%.
I'm just so grateful that you were able to carve out some time to speak with me. I'm sure the listeners, enjoyed hearing your perspective. I have a million questions, but we don't have a million minutes. So I'm going to say thank you again so much for joining us. And everyone who is interested in learning more from Rav Yoni, I will have all of his social information, his links, all of his contact info in the show notes. He is available on Facebook. He does share his writings fairly consistently, as well as the work that he does, and you can buy his book. I'll make sure that link is in the show notes as well. Again, remember everybody, this is one Jew. He's uniquely himself. You need to go out and figure out how to be uniquely yourself and go Jew as hard as you can Jew in your unique way, because that's how we're going to end up increasing Achdut Yisrael. Thank you again so much for being here, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.